Hello, world. What separated your deep ball from everybody else?
My deep ball, it has a little secret sauce to it, man.
Never get too high, never get too low, but just keep moving.
The whole story is Carlos never beat me in any kind of sports in high school.
What's up, everybody? We are not in Sin City, but we're kind of doing the second best thing, getting together, talking some Cincinnati Bengals. I'm Anthony Cosenza, and we are all of the members of the Cincy Jungle podcast channel. We like to do this kind of a quarterly board of directors meeting or something, right? Just talking Bengals, getting the lay of the land on stuff. It's been a few months since we have gotten together, but we got all five of us together. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got some topics already that we're going to touch on. We're going to talk about a lot of different stuff, and we're going to try and get to a couple of listener questions as well. So you can leave those in the live chats, get in touch with us, call or text, all the ways that you usually get in touch with us. Go ahead and do that. But I'm Anthony Cosenza, and I am joined by the entire force, as I mentioned. And I will start with the guy right next to me there, Zim. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody doing out there tonight?
I'm doing okay. You know, the wife's got the house already going for Christmas, so I got to play catch up on that front. You know, it's like, oh God, it's not even Thanksgiving yet, but whatever.
Right. I'm dreading the fact that I'm gonna have to pull my daggone tree out pretty soon too. Like that's happening.
Yeah, ours already up, so that tells you where we're at with things. It's like, oh God. Anyway, but good to see you, man, and good to hear from you. Your partner in crime, Ace. What's going on, dude?
Doing pretty good, AC, and the rest of the gang. Glad that we were able to bring this together.
Yeah, props to you guys for throwing that out there, and we scrambled to put this together. It's good stuff. And good to see everybody. John, my usual partner, what's going on, dude?
Yeah, it's a good thing I don't run these chamber of commerce meetings. I feel like it was good timing. You know, it's like eight or 9 games into the season. It's a nice time to really touch base with everyone on the channel. And like I think maybe some of us were thinking about it, but there was only one guy, the guy in the middle, said, "Hey, it's time to do a roundabout show, right? Time to do a round table." So here we are.
Zim's the guy. Okay, so Zim seems to be like the guy, you know, when you maybe went away to college and then you came back home and you got your group of friends back home, and there's the guy who's always like, "Hey, we're meeting up here. We haven't seen each other for months. We haven't seen each other for the entire year. We got to get together." And Zim's the guy. We all had the thought, but Zim's the guy who's like, "We got to put this in action." And he's that type of guy. Gotta love him for it. And then I got to bring in the coach. We haven't been together with Matt for a while. I think we missed the last one maybe with you, Matt. So good to see you, man. I know you have also, along with Zim, kind of spearheaded this thing and got some topics for us to talk about. So how are you? How are things going? What's new? How's fatherhood?
we're doing good. Yeah, just glad to be where we're at right now with the season. Glad to be where I'm at right now with life, and happy to be here with everybody today. Good to see everybody. It's been too long. I have so much fun. Like I'm by myself on my podcast, and you know, like so much more fun getting together with all you guys.
Likewise. Well, again, you can get in touch with us, 949-542-6241, call or text. We'll try and get to a couple of those. We've got the live chats in Cincy Jungle on one of 3 YouTube channels we're streaming to. So leave a question there. I think we've got a comment thread on cincyjungle.com. You can leave one there, but we've got a couple of different things we're going to talk about. The Bengals are 5-4. They are right in the thick of the playoff race, but they got to start getting back to winning after a 2-game losing streak. The bye came at a good time, and I am going to pass the baton over to the coach because he came up with a small handful of topics, and I'm gonna let him take the reins here and put us on the spot, I guess.
All right. You know, I was actually listening to Paul Dehner Jr. and Jay Morrison's podcast earlier in the week, and Paul Dehner Jr. has been all over the stats lately, which is weird because Jay's normally the stats guy in that show. But you know, it's like if I just came on here and started talking analytics, and everybody's like, "What happened to John Sheeran? He looks weird and old now." but but
Pretty
no,
good. If I look like you, man.
he pointed out that like it has been all the last 5 interceptions for Burrow, right? Targeting Jamar Chase. 4 of the last 5 have been on third downs. All right, with the only exception being the woeful screen against the Jets at the end of that game that turned that thing in their favor. So, I mean, the question is Joe Burrow too locked in on the should-be rookie of the year, Jamar Chase? And I know my man Zim has got a strong opinion on this, so I'm going to start with Zim.
I think you're muted.
You're
still
mute,
muted, Zim.
Check your mic.
It doesn't say it. Yeah, it must be the mic.
I don't know why I did that then. All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
We're good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for me, there is a little bit of relevance, I guess, when people talk about him targeting Jamar Chase, and then I listened to that same pod that you were talking about where he was saying, yeah, like they're all the last 5, I think, are Jamar, and they're on third down, including the pick 6 and different things like that. So I get it, but part of me feels like when I listen to actual Brian Callahan talk too. He also said that, this notion that Jamar Chase is now getting this cloud coverage over him and safeties are coming over top of him and stuff sometimes isn't true. And I just think that Joe Burrow, if he sees like one-on-one coverage, period, he's going to go after it. I don't know if it's on third down or whatever. And some of those picks that we're looking at, like the ball's late on a slant, the pick 6 is late on that one too. He should have thrown it to the pylon. Mm-hmm. Those are 2 balls right there where, like now you take away those 2 picks, just those 2. Joe Burrow's like with the rest of the league at 9 interceptions or whatever. Like the big boys at the top, most of those guys are at between 7 and 8 and 9 or something like that. So I don't put too much stock into it, but at the same time, there is a part of me that says that they have to have equal distribution, and that's part of them being more solid as an offense and being more consistent. Because me and Ace were talking about this one day. He was like, man, they got to be more consistent. More. I'm like, for sure. I feel like that too. Kansas City probably felt like that in the early years as well. But one thing that everybody was scared to death of is the explosive plays. And right now, I feel like the Bengals are the most explosive team, with the exception of maybe the Kansas City Chiefs, probably in the NFL. Like year one. There's not too many teams that can really score that fast and have that type of weaponry. And to move away from it, it's a hard thing to do, especially if Joe sees what he likes. I just think some of those are like bad balls, bad circumstances, tip balls. Every interception has a story, but equal distribution is always needed. That's, like a balanced attack is what is going to get this whole thing moving and rolling. So it goes both ways.
So I'll leave this kind of follow up over to John. So we know that Burrow's greatest asset really is how great he is with those 50-50 balls. His ball placement is incredible. So you like that he's taking these shots, that he's trying to put the ball in. But yeah, there have been some throws that have been a little late. There have been some throws that are a little off target. And sometimes you go back and you're looking and you're like, oh, he must have been under pressure. And it's like, oh no, they wasn't really under that much pressure either. It seems like not only the recent pick on the slant, but there was another slant in that same game that was like a little behind, and there wasn't really anything the defense was doing that seemed to be dictating that. Do you think there's something off? Maybe the knee, or maybe something else with Burrow's placement that's causing this sort of issue?
Potentially. I don't think we know too much enough to say that with any degree of confidence. I think just in regards to Chase and Burrow, the whole idea with this trio was that, it was 3 receivers who could do different things, but defenses would have to account for all 3 of them. And there was so much hype with T. Higgins entering the season, and with the late offseason that Jamar Chase was having, we were thinking, okay, Burrow's not going to force it to Chase. There's hype with Higgins. It might take a little bit. And then immediately it was the Burrow and Chase show, like they didn't miss a beat from 2019 in LSU. the best offense that the Bengals have had is just throwing the ball to Jamar Chase this season. It's why, despite the 11 interceptions from Burrow, he's still top 10 in non-garbage time situations in EPA per play and success rate. Despite the 11 interceptions, this offense is 100 times more explosive because Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase to throw it to. And for the most part, it has been fantastic accuracy. I think he's still, the best in the league at avoiding off-target throws, according to Next Gen Stats or something like that. So yeah, there have been a couple issues, and the reason why we're talking about interceptions, there's only been a couple games where they've been like a legit problem, and we can attribute the Bears game to just trying to press when nothing was really working earlier in the game. But in the Browns game, he threw 2 interceptions, and they turned the ball over a handful of times, and they didn't have any explosive plays to counter out that, which is why they ended up getting crushed, because they also couldn't stop the Browns offense. So it became an issue when they didn't have the explosive plays and the touchdowns to counter out the interceptions that have been a consistent thing all season long, which goes to show you that, like Zim was saying, when you have that explosive element in your offense and defenses have to account for that, and it's hard to stop, you can live with some of those bad decisions. But I think you do bring up a good point. In the recent weeks, there have been some accuracy issues with Burrow, and I don't think it's just attributing it to just throwing up to Chase with confidence. I think maybe it's just been a little bit off, and maybe the bye week came at the right time.
You got me set up for some stuff about the defense, and I love a good segue, but I got to give Ace and Anthony a chance to talk here too. So we will cycle back to that the other problem with picks on offense, with turning the ball over on offense, is when you are losing the turnover margin so bad because you're not getting turnovers on defense. I mean, that is rough. So yeah, let's take the next step with that and look at it. I mean, I think it's not just Chase to me. And you look at that Baltimore game where I think we all thought that Marlon Humphrey was going to give Chase problems. Maybe not Zim.
Who you thought was going to give him some problems? I knew he was going to scorch him up. I came into that game. I wanted him. That's the smoke I've been waiting for all season. Marlon Humphrey ain't did nothing. I ain't want Marlon Humphrey when he was coming out of the draft, and I ain't want him that Sunday, and I had to pick him up.
I think you look at that game though, and I think the game plan was to stay away from him a little bit too, because they targeted T like crazy in that game. So I mean, is this? I'll send this one over to Ace. Like, is it more that Burrow's not just a Chase thing, but that he's getting locked in on the first guy, and maybe it's just that he's so confident and he knows he can place the ball so well that he's like, man, that guy's open. Is that where we're having some of these problems? Because T could have had a big game with all the targets he had, but they weren't able to connect on very many of them.
I mean, I think it may be something like that, but I don't think that the issue is really Burrow locking in on Chase, right? You talk about the explosive offense that we had. Most of those explosive plays have been because of Jamar Chase. And honestly, after that Baltimore game, why wouldn't you up his targets? I mean, you look at it early on in the season, Chase wasn't a guy that really received that many targets, right? It was after that Baltimore game that things just started to ramp up, and they decided, hey, let's go ahead and feed it to him. But I think that the way that this offense is constructed, all 3 guys are going to eat. I mean, eventually there's going to be games where Tyler Boyd gets 10 targets. There's going to be games where T. Higgins, like you said, in the Baltimore game, he's going to get 10-plus targets. And there's going to be games where Jamar Chase is going to get 10-plus targets. So obviously I think the third down thing may be somewhat concerning, but I don't think that it's because Burrow is targeting Chase. I think that may be that the Bengals offense is somewhat predictable, because it seems like all the time on third down, they're going to go to Chase. The defense knows that you're going to go there, and they haven't done a good job of keeping the defense guessing and switching it up. So I think that also is another factor that has also played into the turnovers as well, is they've been somewhat predictable with the guys that they go to. Tyler Boyd, they talked about him being the most targeted guy on third downs. So teams are going to know that you're going to either Tyler Boyd or Jamar Chase, and they're going to be able to play and defend against that. So the Bengals just, I think, in my opinion, have to try to be more unpredictable on offense.
All right. So awaken these Thad Moss believers. Let's get crazy on third down. Pull somebody out the bench. Anthony, so Ace mentioned Tyler Boyd in there. Like, Boyd is not production-wise having the season we expect him to have. Obviously Chase was the man with Burrow in college. But hey, they had Justin Jefferson. They had that slot guy who was a stud. It was a big part of what Burrow did in college too. Do you see Boyd, having a big turnaround in the second half of this season?
Well, there's kind of a lot of facets to everything that's going on here, and I kind of want to talk people a little off the ledge in terms of the increase of interceptions and whatnot. I put out a tweet because I was thinking about this yesterday. Burrow's rise in interceptions right now, really where he's at in terms of turnovers that he has given up at the quarterback position through almost the exact same amount of games last year to this year. He's only given up the ball 2 more times overall if you count fumbles and interceptions. And so while the interceptions have been an issue this year, hanging on to the football, noticing pressure and not kind of freewheeling with the football and letting that get hit, obviously an improvement on the offensive line, less hits, less sacks overall than last year. I would say he's matured in that respect as a quarterback, not taking as many hits and taking hits where he has fumbled the football, and those are devastating plays as well. So, I think in some respects we can kind of walk back off the ledge a little bit in terms of the interceptions. They are, however, very frustrating. I think there is an element sometimes of getting locked into Chase, but number one, it's because that's what's working. If you take into account touchdown passes this year as opposed to in games last year, he had 13 last year, 20 this year. And that's a difference of 7. Guess who has 7 touchdown receptions this year? Jamar Chase. So, I mean, it's like you kind of play all these factors into the thing, and you're kind of seeing a different picture with what's going on here. I will say this: not only has Boyd not really been a part of the plan, it seems, as much this year, but T. Higgins, he's had some really nice plays, but there have been some contested catch issues, a couple of drops in critical situations, and maybe that kind of focuses Burrow to go back to the hot hand a little more than originally planned in Jamar Chase in that respect. So that's why the targets are going there. I think this bye week comes at a really good time where the Bengals can potentially tweak things, refocus. And what I think the initial plan is move the chain, sustain drives with guys like Boyd, Higgins, Uzama, maybe even Mixon in the passing game. Bring that defense back up, the back end of the defense back up a little bit, and hit the big plays like they were doing with Chase earlier in the season deep down the field. I would like to see the offensive staff make those kind of adjustments a little bit this year, but also Chase has just been their spark plug on offense too. So it's kind of like, give the ball the hot hand.
Man, let me say something real quick too. Me and H just interviewed Jamar Chase's father, I think it was like 2 days ago, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I think we agreed on is something just from a cycle. I think a lot of times, like as analysts of football, or we're looking at stats and all these different things, we forget about the human element of playing football. When I play football and I play cornerback, right? If a game started out and the best guy, and I had to check the best guy on the team, if that guy ran like a go route at the beginning and I could feel his speed at the very beginning of the game, like not waiting to the second quarter, not waiting to the end, to halftime or something, it puts a little bit of doubt psychologically in my mind. So that was one of the things we were talking to Jimmy Chase, and he was saying that's something that Joe Brady did every single game at LSU, is take 2 shots, like take a deep shot to Jamar, give him like something short. And I've been screaming that for weeks because as a defender, especially on some of the competition, that was another thing he was saying. It's like the competition that he's been going against, they're sitting at home thinking like, yeah, we want Marlon Humphrey, we want Joe Hayden. Like they're looking at that. And then when they go and every Sunday, they're playing like dudes that we don't even know, like considering like, let's go to the Bears game. Let's go to the Jaguars game. They're thinking like, man, we're about to eat and kill these dudes. And when Callahan and the gang or whatever wait so long to go to him, it builds confidence within the defenders. When we all know that none of those corners can match up with Jamar Chase one-on-one. I think that one small adjustment, even if it doesn't work, just taking a shot with him deep, just to put the fear in the defender to say, okay, I don't want to get beat. Now I'm going to back off 2 yards. I don't want him to come like, I don't want him. Those are the things, but they wait so long in all these games. If they did that, I think that one small element opens up so much. Now that same corner isn't jumping around. He's not coming up and run defenses quick. He's thinking about different things, and you got to get guys thinking. And I think that's part of the element of what they're saying, forcing a ball to Jamar Chase. It's like you're going to him when the guys are already, confidence is up. The game is now in the other side's favor. They got a lead, so they know you're throwing it. You're giving them leverage, and I think that's one small adjustment. And you talk about Tyler Boyd too. Just really quick, the most in the zone that Joe Burrow's been all year is the Jaguars game. Tyler Boyd, I think, had 11 targets in that game. Absolutely took over that game.
Yeah, here's my one thing I'll throw into this is like, if the offense has to be Burrow throwing to Chase to like get a big play and to get things going, if that's what, like, how is this better than Dalton and AJ Green and a young AJ Green, right? You know what I mean? Like come on, like Burrow's got to be able to make some things happen in other ways here. And that gets down to more than Burrow, obviously. That's the offense as a whole. I think a lot of the problems come down to the offensive line, to the lack of consistency there, to some of the problems they're having. Once again, this year, it's been a bit of musical chairs at the right guard position. Hakeem Adeniji, friend of Orange is the New Black. Definitely check out their interview with him. If you missed that a week ago, go back and check that one out. But he's getting the nod there for the second week in a row at the right guard spot. He was a rookie last year and he made some starts, so not really a ton more experience than Jackson Carman, but like a real smart dude, a lot of playing experience at the college level. You could say he's been in the system, but it was a different old line coach. So I'll start with you guys. We'll start with Ace, since you guys had just talked to the Dream recently. What do you think of this right guard position? Do you think Hakeem's the answer there?
That's interesting because when we started at the beginning of the season, I felt like Hakeem Adeniji was a dark horse to play some kind of role at the guard position early on in the season. Obviously, he went down with the injury. So with him coming back, it kind of makes sense. And the reason I felt like that is we all know when Lep speaks that you have to listen. And he talked about Adeniji being a dark horse. And I thought that with him being back, it was just a perfect time for them to do that. Obviously, it seems like Jackson Carman has been up and down, and they're trying to get some consistency there. The guys around him, minus I would probably say Hopkins, they played pretty well. You talk about the right tackle, the left guard. Those have been kind of the strengths of this line. But the center and the right guard position have kind of been some of the inconsistencies and the weaknesses on this line. So I think Hakeem Adeniji definitely can step in. And I know, Matt, you're a huge fan of his, and step in and take on that role and definitely bring some stability to the right guard position.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they're kind of acting like, oh, yeah, we were going to give him a shot there all along. But that kind of makes you wonder, what was the plan with Jackson Carman when you drafted him in the second round?
We know the plan for Jackson Carman. Like, you cannot. This is one of the things that we talked about in the offseason is that for every Bengals fan that said the first pick of the draft has to be an offensive lineman, right? My counter offer was always like, when did second round become like, when did that not become a premium pick? That's a big time. That's a starting guard in this league. Like,
especially top 40. Yeah.
Top 40. I mean, that's a premium pick. If your guy is not playing right now, that's a problem to me. Like, I don't know. I don't have a elaborated point on it, but it's very simple. I drafted you in the second round. We look at Leatherwood that we're going to see this Sunday. They drafted him to play tackle. He didn't work out, but they still got him out there at guard. You can't afford, like, bad teams get bad by drafting high premium picks and then losing out on these guys. Like what's happening to the Raiders and stuff right now with all of their draft picks and stuff. They have to go back and compensate themselves for that by trading away stuff to go get more draft capital. You got to figure out different ways to get it. Or you could be the Rams and just forget a whole salary cap and spend all the money and go get all your guys, which we know the Bengals don't have that type of money. They don't have that type of money sitting in an escrow account for guaranteed cash, at least. So this is what we're left with, is like trying to recreate 2015 every single step of the way. And if you don't hit on your draft picks, that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely got to be able to do something outside of that to take the next step. And you know, I think that the idea of playing him at guard and working man tackle, I think that's not a bad idea. I was starting to think that was good. The right guard was going to be like a holding spot, like he was going to train there, move out, and then they're draft a center, put him in there. You know, kick Trey out. Then a year later, that would aggravate so many people. But
yeah,
treating the position like that. But I was kind of getting that idea. But
right.
I don't know. You know, John, I think you're probably the biggest draft guy on the panel. I mean, actually, I'm trying to think of who it was. Well, you know, I actually tweeted out when the rumor was it was going to be Carmen before the second round even started. I was like, my first word, the first words I wrote down when I was breaking down his film was not good. So, needless to say, I had some concerns. But what are your thoughts on Jackson Carman?
Well, that was the thing, right? Because in Clemson at left tackle, yeah, he was Trevor Lawrence's blindside blocker, and his production was fine. But you look at what he was doing, and there was definite room for improvement, which makes sense. He was 20 years old. You have to look at the context of the situation. Hakeem Adeniji gets injured in the summer. I don't think a lot of us expected him to play at all this season when he got injured. The fact that he's able to play before the month of November began was surprising enough. They didn't waste a single damn minute getting him in the starting lineup. And I don't even think Carman, like, personally was playing that bad. But you have to wonder, with that context, the guy, Adeniji, was just coming back from an injury that I think a lot of us expected to take him out of the entire season. He practices just for a couple weeks and is given immediately a shot to start. He doesn't necessarily blow anyone away against the Browns. He more or less plays the same level of play as Carman. I guess that's just subjective if you have another opinion, if you look at it. But I don't think he necessarily played so well that he deserves to start for the rest of the season in comparison to Carman. So I just have a lot of questions about what they think of Carman now, because I don't think he was playing tremendously terrible enough to get benched like we saw in the Jim Turner days when the leashes on those guys were so short and it was always just constant changing and stuff. Obviously it wasn't great, obviously, but to go to a guy who wasn't practicing for the first 6 weeks of the season and then to have instilled confidence in him, it just raises a lot of questions for me.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think I would agree. I looked at Hakeem and, like, in a bubble, it's like, man, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And I think you take Jackson Carman, and the idea was you thought he was a first-round pick. Unless he's hurt, like, let the dude play. You know, let him feel it out, let him get better. And as you were saying this, and I'll go to Zim and Anthony here for some opinions. This just made me think, what if, because Trey's been the real issue, what if the idea is Jackson Carman's a rookie, maybe he's not completely comfortable, Hakeem is really smart, and like that's something you heard about all about him throughout the draft. He's a really smart dude. You got Quentin Spain, who's, you know, might be your most experienced lineman. Well, maybe not, but, like, you know, he's a really experienced, smart guy. What if the idea is, if you have guards who can split it up and kind of make the calls, you can deal with not having Trey Hopkins' brain on the field at center. So maybe the idea is, if we can get some smart guys around perhaps a rookie center, we can survive without Trey, whose knee just isn't there. What are our thoughts? Anthony, you're not muted, so I'll go to you first.
Well, I don't know with Hopkins. I don't know that the issue, personally, my opinion is, I don't think it's a mental thing with Trey Hopkins. I think his knee and him coming back from that knee injury, I think that may be.
Let me clarify. Hopkins is really smart, makes all the calls, makes
right.
all the checks for the line. Yeah, so he's the man, and it sounds like
you're right. We're
cool
seeing a
with him
different
being
Hopkins
there for that reason, even though I think they knew he was going to be a little bit limited, but they trust his brain there, and they needed him to make those checks. So yeah, the idea is, what if you can survive not having that brain and have some knees that are a little bit better because you put guards that are smart around him.
No, I see the rationale there. I think unfortunately, we all say, anytime any of these guys get an injury and a subsequent surgery, it's the surgery always went well and they're recovering well and they're right on schedule. They're ahead of schedule. Well, each body responds differently. And obviously Joe Burrow having a knee injury, he's 220 and Trey Hopkins is 300-ish pounds. And that's just more pressure on the knee, different position and all of that. I just think it's a physical thing that's ailing Hopkins. I understand your rationale, though, of maybe divvying up a little bit of the calls and responsibilities across the line, especially the two guys flanking him. So I understand that. Kind of talking about Adeniji and Carmen and all of that. I liked Adeniji. I liked, especially Matt, after you went into a lot of different film and different things with him after he was drafted last year. I really started to come around on him. The tape that he put out and starting role, like you said, was kind of it's the same thing with Carmen. And then, we had a guy we were all excited about this year and Deontay Smith, who unfortunately left, he's injured as well now. So, I mean, there's kind of a double-edged sword situation here where there's a lot of guys that they've amassed over the last couple of drafts that you feel like, hey, maybe there's tackle potential there. There's guard potential there. Long-term viability at guard or tackle with some of these guys. So you feel pretty good about that. But at the same time, the team just doesn't seem to be fully sold on any of these guys really early in their career. They're doing the musical chairs thing again. They're doing the deal where, a little bit of short leash like you talked about. And that's kind of a warning flag for me a little bit in terms of how much belief do they have in these players. Yeah, they're still really young, especially Carmen. John mentioned, I think now he's at 21 years old. He's probably one of, if not the youngest guy on the roster right now. So, I mean, there's still a lot of maturity and development to be had there. Same with Adeniji in his second year. But at some point, this team needs to start finding the guy at certain spots on the offensive line. And they need to invest, whether it's in the draft and free agency, and they need to go forward. I like the idea that if they're not liking what they're seeing, they realize that the offensive line has been a problem. I like that. But at the same time, you got to start finding the guys, and you can't have 5 Pro Bowlers on the line. I get that. But at some point, the guard position, the right tackle position was an issue before Reef for a couple of years. You got to start settling on guys, really investing in making them a developmental player, developing them and making them a viable starter. So again, I think with this whole situation, for me, there are a lot of positives and I like the upside with a lot of these guys. Unfortunately, some of them aren't available because of injury, but I also see a lot of red flags in that they're just, the team doesn't seem to be, the coaches don't seem to be fully sold on some of these guys.
I mean, even when the O-line was really good, the right tackle position, like years ago, like the right tackle and Russell Bodine were like the weak links on that thing. Where the rest of the group was pretty good. Zim, you have some thoughts there?
Yeah, a lot of lines. I mean, I think I was listening to something. I was listening to the guy. I can't think of his name. I think his name is Chris Davis or whatever. But he works a lot with the Raiders and stuff. And he was talking about the musical chairs there. Like they don't even really like. They thought they were going to have Incognito. He's got like a calf strain or something going on. Like. You talk about like stability. They don't have the tackle tandem that we have. They don't have Spain playing at a Pro Bowl level, but that not to say that there's nothing to be done with the line. But I think you made a really good point though, Matt, that I hadn't even thought about is that I think the profile of Carmen is what the team is falling in love with. Like take Carmen's bodies and put them, and I hate that. I feel like we do this on every show. I always bring up the Pittsburgh Steelers every time. But put Carmen on the Steelers or something. Like, I think they take that same body mold and make something really, really, like, special there. Whereas the Bengals, for whatever reason, have a hard time with their coaching techniques or whatever. We got Frank the Tank. We got, like, they had this hard time getting guys, like, to play better than what they're supposed to or play above what we thought they would. And it's just like slow stroking, slow sailing for all of these guys. But I thought you made a really good point by saying like about maybe the mental part of it where Carmen's the profile lines up, but he's making the mental mistakes. And one bad rep is one bad hit to Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. And that's something from the fan base and everybody that's watching is all over. You make one mistake, as we seen from the cornerback position, that's a touchdown. If you make one bad rep, that's a hit that everybody's going to be saying, oh, get him out of here. We just ran 2-3 dudes out of town for the same thing. So I think the coaching staff is now saying, like, we don't have any room for those errors. And I think that's a great point by saying Adeniji is so solid and he understands, like the stunts, that he understands different things that are coming his way early on, and they feel way more comfortable with that. Maybe they don't think about long-term. They're thinking Carmen's still long-term. He hurts his back in the one game. They're like, you're still making a couple of mistakes. Let's go with a guy that we know won't make a mistake. Look at that baby. Look at that sweet little baby.
We have an unplaying guest.
Let's get him out there blocking.
He's got the gear on, though.
But he's going to
help make today.
But I just
I just need to sit.
That was a good point, though.
The one thing I wanted to say is, don't forget when the Bengals drafted Carmen, they moved back and ended up getting several other players as well. So they did move back and get Deontay Smith as well as Tyler Shelby.
I got high hopes for Deontay Smith, man.
I think Deontay Smith is the guy that I really want to see the most, especially after training camp. With Carmen, from what I was told, he was supposed to play right guard, but they were kind of grooming him for right tackle next year if Reef ends up leaving. That was the initial plan. I don't know if that's changed
Reef's balling
now or not, but yeah, that was what I was told was the initial plan is, hey, can he play guard? And eventually we want to move him out to right tackle. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But I really want to see Deontay Smith for sure.
I got a quick question for everybody. We're watching Reef play like how he's playing, right? This is what I said before the season. I'm not as quick to say he's gone as everybody else was. On a scale of like picking Quentin Spain, Ogunjobi, guys like that, who are your higher guys that you think in the offseason? I know we're looking a little bit ahead, but I just thought this was like I want to ask you guys this. Who would you go and sign first? Now that we've seen Jesse Bates kind of take a little bit of step down, Anthony, I want to start with you. Like, who do you think like you will prioritize? Like, as far as that, would you go offensive line? Is it BJ Hill or is it Ogunjobi? Like, based off of what we've seen so far,
it's hard to say because a lot of these guys. I mean, I think in terms of overall value and bang for your buck of guys that you can sign long term. I think unfortunately for Jesse Bates, we may be looking at a franchise tag situation, which is less than ideal for everybody, both from a value perspective, a salary cap perspective, on the player side as well. They want a long-term deal. So that to me, while I think he should be the highest priority, I think if you're talking about overall picture and value and all of that, kind of push that one aside a little bit. I think you look at Quentin Spain. I think that's a guy, he has the highest PFF score of all the offensive linemen this year. So I think that's a guy, and he's not as old as Riley Reef. And you've got potential tackle prospects or developmental guys on the roster right now. So I think Quentin Spain is a guy you look at. And I think you look at one of those interior defensive linemen, BJ Hill, Larry Ogunjobi, or both. BJ Hill was a guy that, I mean, he's a rotational player. But when you talk about who they dealt, and what they've got out of that trade, it's just kind of like mind-boggling. You know what I mean? It's like the whole, like the Clinton McDonald, Brian Leonard trade. It's like you go back to all these different trades and you go, wow, that was kind of savvy move there. So I think, kind of trench work a little bit. That's where the Bengals were winning some games early on. I think interior offensive line and one or both of those defensive tackles, I think that's probably where you start. Of course, Bates is your highest priority. But again, if you're talking about manageable salary cap number, value, all of that, that's kind of where I'd start, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree on Ogunjobi. What do we think, Ace?
So you're higher on Ogunjobi, even though, like, for me, this is one thing that I noticed, even on the Chubb run. Don't y'all think that, like, don't you see this a lot where Ogunjobi's there, but he doesn't really make the play?
He's missed 10 tackles.
I see that. He's always in the backfield, but I'm like, why didn't he make the play?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is to me. He's always in the backfield. Like he's always causing pressure.
He's the three tech that we,
Yeah, he's penetrating. He's causing the problems. I say pressure, but like really for everything. But no, I mean, you make a good point. There are those kind of like little moves in the open space that have been getting him. He's definitely been a part of that. I don't know. I just like the big splash plays just like stick out to me with Ogunjobi.
Right.
And I think Ogunjobi, you're taking a lot of the great things with him, but just also accepting, like Zim said, the missed tackles and the fact that he's not winning that much as a pass rusher. It's just that when he does win, he finishes, which is why he has like a decent number of sacks this year. So in terms of prioritizing these guys who are entering free agency, I think Quinton Spain is obviously playing the best, but I think you should have confidence in Deontay Smith filling in for him next year if they happen to not get a deal done. So it's not like it's such an urgent thing to get Quinton Spain under contract for long term. With Riley Reif, I think he's playing okay, but he's going to be 34 next year, and he's probably not going to be any better than what he is right now. But at the same time, you don't really have a solution behind him, and you're probably going to have to draft someone anyway. So naturally, the priority is high there, but you're not really paying for a top tier guy at that point. And with Ogunjobi, like honestly, I think BJ Hill's kind of outplaying him a little bit. I think he's playing a lot more consistent. He's just not as explosive as an athlete. So you're not getting those splash plays as a pass rusher. So it's like for both of those guys, I don't know if they're going to demand that much on the market anyways. So I don't know how much urgency you have with them. So those are like the guys that they should be interested in bringing back. But I don't think any of those guys are going to attract that much attention on the open market if they get there.
Ace, who would you prioritize? Like
it's tough because from a roster building standpoint, you have both of your three techniques essentially getting ready to walk out the door, and you don't really have anyone there. So you have to pick one of those guys. I'm not saying that they have to be the priority. Riley Reif, I think that you at least look at if it's a situation where the money is pretty solid for him like you got this year. Yeah, sure. I think that you have to do that. Will the Bengals do that? That's one of the things that concerns me because once guys get kind of long in the tooth, they don't value them as much, but I still would bring them back. But you do have somewhat of a contingency plan in that case that he doesn't come back. You still got Deontay Smith. You still got Jackson Carmer. The one thing I will say is even though these guys haven't really panned out, the Bengals are in a way better space, in my opinion, as far as depth with the offensive line than they were last year. Like you still got Fred Johnson. You still got some of these guys. So depending on what they do there at the right tackle position, we'll see. Jesse Bates, that's the most interesting one to me. I think that he definitely needs to be a priority, but they did go out and they signed Ricardo Allen. So I don't know if the plan is to potentially replace Jesse Bates with Ricardo Allen. I'm not sure what their plan is there, but there's a lot of guys that you could prioritize. But I think one of the three techniques, Riley Reif, if you can, if the money is okay there. Quinton Spain for sure. I think Quinton Spain has kind of cemented that left guard position for us. You think about it, a year ago, that's where Michael Jordan was at. That was the position that ended up causing Joe so many issues. And the way that he's played this season, I think that he deserves it for sure.
Man, they better. I'd throw a 3-year at him right now. Like to me, I think I asked that question because to me, Quinton Spain is the most underrated player, maybe from the fan base or whatever, but on this team right now. He's a friend of the show, but he's but he is like to me, like what he represents. Like I remember us asking some of those questions, like, "Hey, if somebody knocks Joe on the ground or whatever, you guys gonna do something, whatever?" And then we see it, like they stand up for Joe, and he made sure, like
Hakeem was the first one there.
Yeah, right.
And I went back and watched it like slow motion. He took off. Like he was like it wasn't even standing there. Like
right.
He got his ass.
He went
there.
frame by frame with the reaction.
He means
yeah. I wanted to see who was reacted, who was reacted first. It was him. Like, he was there.
Adeniji is a serious guy in the sense of he's very smart and intelligent with the questions that I think we were asking him to make sure that he answered them the way that he wants to. And I feel like he's assertive with his actions. And that makes sense that he'd be the first person like right on the spot. But I just think like Quinton Spain, like just talking to guys, like he's the guy that's getting all the guys all together, eating together and getting part of the culture together and getting restaurants and all these different things for the offensive line. And then he's matching this play. Like, I just think it sends a message to the locker room. And I think you look back at some of the places that he had been, it's just with some weird situations and stuff. And I think the stability in that spot, I think the Bengals will be really, really foolish. I don't care. I know I've read a couple of comments. People say historically Bengals don't play guards. Well, they better get to the current, because right now we cannot afford to be doing some, like the left side of your line is on point.
Well, he's not going to cost very much either, so which is why you're more confident.
Exactly.
It feels like a deal's going to get done with that, as well as Bates. Right. Like it feels like it's not even worth discussing with Bates because they're going to at the very least franchise tag him. There's like no real conversation with that.
I think they get the Bates deal done too. I think.
Go ahead. No, I was saying it was possible. I was about to.
I think before it might be a little bit of a holdout coming up next year, whatever. But I think they get it done. But it's not till next year though. That's just my gut.
Yeah,
heard a couple things.
And Bush comes to shove, they could franchise him because Ricardo Allen's not a long-term answer there. Like they got to figure something out better than that.
For sure.
But yeah. Again, let's not go down that rabbit hole with the Bates contract. But no, it's some really good, really interesting points there. And yeah, I think the big value of Spain is that left side would be good because you really don't know about anything on the right side because Reef's been all right, but he's old. Maybe Trey's better next year. We don't know. And then right guard's musical chairs. So let's get to the defense. And we're running up against it time-wise. I think Ace has got to run to another show. And
I got to run, guys.
Pretty soon. So the longtime defensive coordinator here has got to mention some defense. Defense looked good. All right. And they were ranked really high at the beginning of the year. Obviously, there's been some major issues recently, and really in all of their losses, they've been missing tackles like crazy. Even though we hear Lou Anarumo is all about fundamentals, they miss tackles like crazy in some of those games. I pointed out in my article, my film room article earlier this week on Cincy Jungle, which you should check out. They played the run pretty good most of the time. Like for what you can expect, because it's the Browns, you're probably going to give them 5 yards a pop. You know what I mean? But there was that 70-yard run. Like you can't have that, but you take that out and it wasn't that bad. There was a 60-yard touchdown. These are things defenses can't do. All right. But the play-by-play wasn't that bad. They just really screwed up majorly and F themselves. So what do we think? I mean, can this defense be what it was early in the season, or are they showing their true colors in the recent weeks here? And I'll start with Anthony.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
We're like full Brady bunch here with the.
I know. Yeah. So it's a really good question because, I don't know that I fully know the answer. I just keep going back to the sentiment that this bye week is coming at the most ideal time for this team based on their 2-game skid. Both sides of the football are not playing their best. They are not doing the things that they excelled at in the first 7 weeks. They got them to 5-2 with a couple of high quality wins. So, I can't blame it on injuries this year. Last year, you had all of your stars out at this point on defense. The cupboard's kind of full here for the most part. No Trey Waynes, but yeah, I think it's a combination of factors. I think we haven't seen the best from Jesse Bates. John and I talk about Jesse Bates a lot on our show, and really he's always been a guy that's been a tale of 2 seasons within a season. He's been a guy where he's kind of mediocre a lot of times for half a season, then he's absolutely excellent for another half. And that's, if you go back and look at his career, that's kind of been what he's done as a pro in terms of at least big plays. Now last year he's a little bit more consistent, but even so, the big plays kind of come in flurries, and it's kind of tale of 2 seasons within a season with him. I think the pressure has been a little less consistent and less consistent from some of the guys who were doing things well early in the year. And I think you guys brought it up, and I couldn't have put it any better about Larry Ogunjobi. I love the tweet that John put out about Larry Ogunjobi about how he's the 180 hitter with 40 home runs. Like, he's the guy that he'll absolutely wreck a play or he'll be completely out of position. And so I think earlier, exactly. Earlier in the season, I think that was masked and or wasn't happening as frequently. You go back to that Vikings game, he was incredible in that Vikings game, as was the rest of the defensive line. And it just, some of these things have kind of been exploited a little bit. I don't know how they're going to mask it. I worry about the Davis Gaither injury just from a versatility and athleticism standpoint, but I think maybe just a little bit of rest. I think the tackling has just gotten sloppy. And if they shore that up, hopefully they did that over the bye with both getting back to basics and just some rest. I think you're going to start seeing a unit that's playing a little bit closer to what we saw in the beginning of the year.
Quick insert. I'm excited to see Marcus Bailey, though. Zim, go.
Yes,
right. You're going to see him one-on-one with Waller in the red zone coming up. I promise you that.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony,
That I don't want to see.
Oh, it's happening. It's happening. After he went one-on-one with Njoku or whatever last week, they were like, "Yeah, here you go. Here's Waller." The guy I'm scared to death of is
Renfro.
Renfro. That's who I'm scared of. Because I don't Eli Apple. He better line him up with a Woozy. But Anthony, the one thing I will tell you about Bates that is a lot different is this year they haven't played a lot of single high like they were. And I think even Von Bell, they're putting him like you go look at the touchdown with Donovan Peoples-Jones or whatever. Like normally the alignment would have been like Jesse Bates takes the inside of that and then Eli Apple. This year that's Von Bell, and that's happened a lot. Like if you look at a lot of these games, his assignment I think has changed, and I don't think he's comfortable with it. And I think the injury that he had earlier in the year, I think it's still kind of like there. Much like you, I think you talked about T. Higgins earlier in the I think his shoulder still probably bothers him to this day too. But I think the assignment, I think they're going to change that. And I think Trey Hopkins came to the podium, I think that was yesterday, and he was saying, look, I'm not trying to take that rest day anymore. Like I need to psychologically be back into this. My knee feels good. Maybe that changes, but I like to see them get back into some of the coverage stuff that Jesse Bates was accustomed to doing. Do you know that Jesse Bates doesn't have one pass breakup the entire football season?
That's crazy to think of. I do wonder what people are going to think. Like Bates all of a sudden gets 2 picks in the next 4 games, and all of a sudden he's got 3 interceptions, or people are just going to be like, "Oh, he's great." You know what I mean? Like I feel
that's
like
why interceptions are just
right.
Interceptions are just weird. Like
we just get caught up in the oh, he's having a down year. I'm like, all right, well, he's a safety, so tackles are kind of unpredictable a little bit, and the interceptions are always unpredictable. Plus, he always has 3. Like, so he's like, it's halfway through the year. He's like a half off of, a half an interception off of pace here. You know what I mean? But John, what do you think?
Bates is honest almost to a fault. Cringe Wizard said no one should worry about Bates not getting a contract. I think he was worried about not getting a contract, and he said that earlier this week. And he said my head was not in the right place. And I think playing in a contract year can do one of 2 things. It could either motivate you to overperform, or it can distract you from playing your best or just playing at your usual level. It seems to have been the latter for Jesse Bates for whatever reason. And I think Zim has brought up a good point. There was the difference in just the way that they've looked like they've gone into single high in some coverages, and then they've kind of disguised that to go into 2 high, and they've used Von Bell more as a deep safety this year, which has kind of changed Jesse Bates' role, but it still doesn't look like he's reacting as quick to some of these routes. And I remember in the Baltimore Ravens game, like there were a handful of passes that last year Jesse Bates probably closes down quicker and maybe makes a play on it. So I think Bates can turn it around because he's shown in the previous 3 years that whenever he has a bad half of the season, he turns around with a good one, or he goes from a good half to a bad half. So that's kind of the moral of Jesse Bates' career thus far. And with the entire rest of the defense, man, I don't think they expected anything from Mike White, and they tried to be really conservative, and they ended up getting shred by 1,000 paper cuts. And I try to tell people, man, Nick Chubb might matter a lot. I think he's a top 3 running back playing behind the best offensive line. That's a very dangerous combo. And the Bengals, despite all the improvements that they made, have not shown any capability of being able to tackle him. And I think that's going to be a problem until they prove that it's not. So they ran into another iteration of the Browns offense that they've shown that they cannot stop. And then they got surprised by another rookie quarterback, or a quarterback who's making his first start. So those 2 games have altered the perception of a Bengals defense that was largely exceeding my own expectations. Trey Hendrickson was completing a lot of his pressures at a rate that I didn't think was sustainable from last year. And Chidobe Awuzie is playing like a number 1 quarterback. And those 2 guys have made such an impact on this defense that has allowed them to be really good for the first 7 weeks. And I think they can return to that now that they're playing more favorable opponents.
All right, we are getting a little up there time wise, so I'm gonna kind of lightning round my response to this too. But like to me, the thing with Bates, I didn't want to get into the Bates contract thing, but safeties that play just deep field coverage, even if they get a lot of picks, like we value that as fans, and I think analytics values that. Like the NFL doesn't pay those guys like they pay the guys who are really versatile and spend a lot of time in the box and make a lot of tackles and do this. So he needs to show that piece, which I think he has this year. Despite some very well publicized missed tackles, I think he's actually been a lot better in some of those situations. And I kind of think that's why they didn't want to dish out a bunch of money for him, because I think they didn't know how well he fit as they wanted him as a moving piece. So I think he's done better in that area, but now it's just coming back and putting it together and being able to be the dude back there that he has been. The other thing I want to point out about the defense, Vernon Hargrove's coming in. Okay. Trey Flowers coming in. Maybe Trey Flowers is covering Darren Waller.
Yeah,
I like that a lot better.
I love that.
And they talked about using him as more of like a dime guy. And I think Vernon Hargroves, maybe that's against the Colts last year. They tried to make a franking corner out of LaShawn Sims and Darius Phillips, and it was a massive error. Eli Apple, Vernon Hargraves, two former first-round picks who do have some talent, just had some issues. Maybe he can figure that out to make that work. Like, because Wayne's better. Like, Wayne's is better, but you can't rely on him. Even if he does get healthy, we can't rely on that. So maybe between those guys, they can come up with something to fix that issue on the defense.
Man, they really miss Wayne's in run support. There's so many games that I'm just like, damn, like that Bears game. It from the cornerback position, I just thought that Trey Waynes would have been I don't know. There's some games out there. Hey, after you do this, I want to tell Anthony this. Do you have ability to go back on some of those super chats? And I want to be able to answer some of the questions from some of the people. There's been some really good questions in here.
Yeah. A couple I've noticed that we've
had some.
We've touched a little. They've kind of coincided actually a little bit, but yeah, if you see some, Zim, let me know and I'll point some out for sure, because I want to get to some of these.
There was one more thing I wanted to get to. Like, when we look at this, we've seen this division once. They're 2-1 in the division. Who are you most afraid of in the rematch?
Easily.
Ravens. I'm not afraid of the Browns.
I mean, I was like, that was my take right away. I was like, after the Browns game, I was like, I'm more afraid of seeing the Ravens the second time. I'll watch the film again, and there are some,
I feel like the Browns, we killed ourselves in that game, because had it been a shootout like last year, who was that? I think that was Anthony early in the show was saying by the time we got to week whatever, we didn't have anybody. We didn't have any of our starters on defense. If I get into that same shootout with Baker Mayfield this year. No. The second time that we played them.
No, I know, but they didn't have any. They didn't have a defensive line.
We didn't have it. But by the time we got to week 8, week 10 or whatever that was, Jalen Davis was starting with Darius Phillips and a mix of LaShawn Sims, right? Yeah. And so all the Browns fans were like, "Yeah, Baker's cooking." I'm like, "Yeah, you won't cook against give me that same shootout, and I bet you I can win that game." And that's And I would have had that same shootout, but I just committed the pick 6, the fumble on my side of the field, the 4th and 3, which is another turnover. Any team you give them the ball 3, I virtually gave you 21 points. If I could get them in a shootout situation, or I could just not make mistakes, I feel like I can kill them. The Ravens, I don't care how many points they're down. I watched this dude Lamar 4 times this year, including, I think that was a Chiefs on that Thursday night game. I watched him come down from 14, 17, and another. He is the deadliest, most explosive player in the National Football League, and fans that still don't respect him, I don't know where you guys are from, because that dude is scary, super scary to me. I don't care how many points I'm down. I know he's built to have a lead. I get it, but scary.
I'm not hot take guy, but I'll say it. I don't want to play the Pittsburgh Steelers again. The Pittsburgh Steelers all of a sudden are now in the. I know, and you can brush it off, and we can brush it off. We brushed them off at the beginning of the year. We brushed them off a month into the season. We brushed them off, and where are they? They're right in the middle of the playoff race.
They're always going to be right there, though.
Single year they are in it.
The way that their franchise is set up.
Stable.
But this is one thing this is one Cardinal thing. They'll never be able to Joe Burrow themselves and put themselves in tank out or anything like that. They have way too much pride, way too much stability or whatever. They're always going to be in the middle of the pack, and they might not have they might end up 9-8 this year too, right? But the one thing is, I saw them play against the Detroit Lions this past week. Complete trash. And I would love to play those guys again.
Well, it's ugly, and they are a very imperfect team. They have a lot of new parts on the offensive line. There are a lot of different things that they are ironing out, but somehow through it all, they're right in the middle of the playoff race. They're right in the middle of the division race. They're playing ugly football, and they're right there. And really, unless they have all these kinds of injuries, the offensive line should only at least marginally improve because they've got a lot of new guys there. Rookie running back, he's in the race for Rookie of the Year. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're juggernauts, but they're just always there. It's like the Undertaker GIF, right? Where it's they just you think they're dead and they just keep coming back, and you're like, dude, go away.
I think the Chargers going to do them something dirty on Sunday.
I hope so.
I mean, that's the thing though. Like,
ugly.
I think you're absolutely right about that, because like that's the thing about the Steelers. Like they just figure things out. Like that week 1 against the Bills, they just they block a punt. They didn't play that well in that game. They just they let the Bills screw it up. Like they're really good at letting other people screw. Like I don't know if it's like a Steelers mystique or something, but like, and they're good at being there and ready to take advantage when teams screw it up. And that's the problem right now in the AFC. That's why nobody's running away with this thing. Because whenever they think they're there, they screw it up. Like nobody knows how to not screw it up.
This entire conference is trash. It is. It's nothing compared to the NFC. Nothing about the Steelers scares me, aside from the fact that I grew up watching this rivalry and the Steelers usually win. Nothing that the Bengals roster right now isn't scared of the Steelers. And honestly, I've heard of a bunch in the offseason. You better draft Penny Sewell to face TJ Watt. He's not about to play in either of these games because he's got a hip injury. Honestly, like I don't think the Bengals are going to lose next week against the Steelers, no matter if Ben or Mason plays.
I don't think so too. I
just don't trust him like I don't trust anybody. You know what I mean?
I will say this. The Steelers are definitely going to look at that Jets game, and they're going to be looking at the depth of Logan Wilson to make sure like he's aligned properly. I just don't understand when I rewatched that game. Mike White literally did the same thing that Ben tried to do, but the Bengals just made all of the tackles. All of those little dump offs to the perimeters. Like Najee Harris probably had 14, 15 catches in that game that were just nothing, right? They did the same as that thing, but for whatever reason, the depth of Logan Wilson and the linebackers in that game was just so off, and he could never react to Michael Carter out in space. He could never react to any of these guys fast enough the same way he did, what was that, week 2 when we played the Steelers the first time? It was virtually the same thing, but I think they'll look at that, and I think it does present some problems, and then now you don't have Akeem Davis-Gaither. There are, for Anthony, you're 100% right. They'll always be there, and they always play down to their talent. So that's why the Lions game is they just look really bad though. They look like not just sloppy, like they look really bad in that game.
Dude, I've joked about this for 2 years now, but I genuinely believe that the next time that Roethlisberger throws for 20 or more yards, his arm is going to stay attached to the ball and rip out of its socket. It looks completely done.
Right.
It's done.
Dip it in bronze and put it in the Hall of Fame, right?
Right.
But like John makes some great points about the AFC. Like, there are teams, and you're like, ooh, they're pretty good. No, but then they screw it up. And like I think the Titans, like it caught up with them that Tannehill's not that good. Like people like act like he's just okay, But they've got enough things going on that. In this division or in this conference, the way it's going right now, especially if Derrick Henry comes back for the playoffs, they can take it because nobody's going to take it from them. You guys are forgetting else to do it.
When you play Pittsburgh, you play 2 teams, right? You play the Steelers and you play the referees, as Blackthorn is pointing out there. So that's also what makes the game increasingly difficult.
I posted a tweet. Do you guys know that the Pittsburgh Steelers are the only team in the National Football League that have never been called for a defensive pass interference?
This year?
What do you mean never? Oh, okay.
For this season.
Never.
No, this whole season. And in contrast, their opposition has been called for defensive pass interference more than any other teams in the National Football League. I just wanted to tell everybody that because I wake up. Browns have been my new love this year. I wake up and I just hate the Browns this year. Before it was just I would wake up, somebody would cut me off on the road, and I'd be like, "Oh, he's a Steelers fan." But now I'm just like, "Is it Browns? Is it Steelers?" Like I hate both of them, and it's like my new passion. I had a question. There was a super chat guy. DJ Mister says, "My guys Zim, John, and the dynamic duo are my favorite." Sorry, Anthony, Ace, and Matt, but thoughts on chances of finishing 10-7, realistic or no at this point, guys? I'm gonna start with John Sharon.
That would be 5-3. That's completely realistic. Like we talked about on Wednesday, all 8 of these games are not only important for the playoff race, but important to gauge how good this team actually is, because they're all against teams that they might face in the playoffs if they get there. But at the same time, 7 out of the 8 are AFC teams, and there should be no team in the AFC that the Bengals should necessarily be afraid of. And I think at least 5 or maybe even 6 of these games are going to be at home, where that should be an advantage towards the late part of the year. I think they can absolutely get 5 wins. I've seen what this team was before the Jets game, and I don't think there's a reason to believe that team is gone after just 2 losses. I don't think that, I think anything beyond 5 wins is reaching into the more unlikely realm, but I think 5 should be entirely in the realm of reasonable possibilities. Yeah, for sure.
And you're going to need it. I think with a 17-game season,
you got to win 5.
I don't think you're squeaking in with 9.
Nope.
But no, I agree with everything you said there. And, I think there's a lot of, again, everybody's just kind of interesting. Like beginning of the year, we never would have thought this, but the Chiefs, obviously they got the playmakers. That's going to be an issue with the defense, but you look at that game and you're like, yeah, maybe, I think the Chargers is an interesting one too, because they've kind of been up and down. Obviously you get the Herbert rivalry thing going on. So, I really look at it and I feel like they should beat the 49ers, and then every other game's like a coin toss pretty much.
You think they should beat the 49ers?
Yeah.
I'm scared of the 49ers.
I'm least afraid of the 49ers.
Really? I feel like their run game, the way that that's the type of game that the Bengals defense historically to me has lost. It's like guys that run different type of run concepts and put people in motion and make you think before the play. The times when we've gotten blown out by the Chiefs, it's just like the alignment pre-snap is just threw everybody off. Like the last time that we played the Chiefs, I remember, I see teams literally play the 49ers and pre-snap. You're just like, that's going for 8-9 yards. And we're good against the run, but they're not attacking the inside of they're not attacking.
That's true. They get off formation. They get, sometimes there's alignment problems. You're like, oh, look at the gaps. There's no way, and Kyle's smart enough to do that. Like they have a coach that can do that stuff.
Right.
But I don't know. I just think talent wise, I just think if this offense gets clicking, if the game flow can go right, it really shouldn't be a problem, in my opinion. Anthony, what do you think?
10-7, Anthony.
I refuse to answer this question because I'm not one of DJ Mister's favorites. So I'm not going to be. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding, guys. I need to be one of the favorites in order to answer this properly. But no, I think I said in the early part of the preseason in the summer that the win range I had for the Bengals this year, if everything fell right, they stayed healthy, was 8-10. 8 kind of being on the lower side of things, and 10 being, they showed maturity, growth, development, all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's easily attainable. I think you need to ask me again after what happens Sunday, though, because if they can't win this game on Sunday against a team with an identical record and a lot of parallels, every single game that they have remaining on their schedule, 4 teams are either right outside the playoffs and in the hunt, and 4 teams are currently slated to be in the playoffs right now. So if you can't win this one on Sunday, which it's not gonna be an easy game, but if you can't win that game on Sunday against Las Vegas, then I think then 10 may not be possible. But as we sit here today, I think it's definitely possible. I think it is on the higher end of the regular season win spectrum that I had for them going into this year.
If they get to the Raiders and they put themselves in an exclusive pass only situations, like behind, that's the only way I could see them losing to the Raiders is in Doc Way and Max Crosby just start going crazy. But if they get themselves in that type of situation, that's the only way, because the threats of Jacobs and the other things that the Raiders want to do, I think those are good matchups for us.
Yeah, I was kidding, by the way. Totally
So
kidding.
let me kind of double back to we're talking about the record, we're talking about the playoffs, we're talking about projection. One team we didn't
I have a
mention
good
in the
projection
AFC.
question.
Was that?
I have a good projection question. The next
Okay.
question too.
I just want to throw this out there with one team we haven't mentioned is the Patriots. They're getting better. And it's Belichick's doing the Belichick thing and finding a way to figure out how to make this team win. Again, if the Chiefs were the Chiefs, you wouldn't look at them as a serious contender. But now you kind of got to do that. I'm sorry, Zim. The Patriots go to the playoffs. Chase is going to get F'd. Mac doesn't deserve it. The Patriots, Mac Jones takes the Patriots to the playoffs. He's going to win it.
Right.
Jefferson should have won it last year. They
Right.
gave it to Herbert.
Right.
And that was the beginning of the year when it was like Jamar Chase for the rookie of the year. The number one reason that I thought that was going to happen was
Mac.
There's no quarterback.
Well,
Mac Jones wasn't great at the beginning, and he's not great now. But we're the media's overhyping him.
He's coming on. I mean,
but
he's coming
we're
on.
getting a little too excited about him. I like him. I see good things. We're a little too horny for it. But
like we talked to Jimmy Chase though. Jimmy Chase.
You know what I mean, though. But that's the thing. They're going to give it to a quarterback if there's a quarterback that's even remotely worthy. Right. Go on.
Jimmy Chase said that the only way that they'll give it to his son is if he breaks every rookie record and they go to the playoffs. And I believe that too. And I've always kind of believed that if they had a legitimate, another quarterback and Mac Jones, that's just the way the league goes, though. I think he still wins offensive rookie of the year or something, like if he hits 1,200 yards, right? The next question I had was Brandon Monroe Sr. said, I have a question for all of y'all. What position do you feel like we should take in the first round? I'm going to answer this one quick. I think it should be corner, and I think it should be Sauce Gardner. Sauce!
Wouldn't hate that.
We're going to be picking right at that spot. That's going to be the sweet spot. The big name cornerback is going to come out of Alabama or something, I'm guessing. I haven't even looked at the draft board. Sauce Gardner is going to be sitting there between 13 and 19 or something like that, and we'll be right there, in that area. That's a sweet spot. It's hard for me to see an edge rusher that they just fall in love with at that spot. And then I think they put so much stock in the offensive line. I think they're going to go forth with Deontay or whatever, and then come back in the second round again and go get, maybe our future, tackle or something for Reef or whatever. If they feel different, I think they'll probably come back. What they should do is in the third or fourth and go get their starting center. If Hopkins plays anything like this, but
they're allergic to taking defensive linemen in the first round for whatever reason. So I think it's either cornerback or tackle at this point. And
it's Sauce.
It depends on what they do with Reef. Yeah. I'm really curious as to where Sauce goes because, I see a 6'3", 190-pound cornerback who I don't know what he's going to run, and coming from, I guess, not quote unquote not great competition. I don't know what the league is going to think of him. I've seen him in the 30s and player rankings, but the production's there to be drafted in the first round.
You're a Bearcat.
Really weird.
You're a Bearcat, John. You need to stand up for Sauce. You need to demand. Go talk to Katie. Go talk to all of them and tell them we need them.
Quietly, I would still take Stingley, but you didn't hear that from me.
Stingley won't be there because Stingley. Now I know Stingley. I've heard. I haven't seen him, but I've heard he's regressed a little bit this year.
Sauce he was hurt. Yeah.
Okay, but Sauce is the number one rated corner in college football. Has the least amount of yards on him, and is the number one PFF rated corner.
Oh, he's good. He's good. He's good as hell. I would not be disappointed if my favorite team took him.
This is the part where Anthony tells us somebody from UCLA or Oregon or somebody like, here, come on.
You're on mute.
I was going to say if Thibodeau fell, give me Thibodeau, but Thibodeau's not going to fall. But,
there we go.
There's the Pac-12 guy, but no, I think corner has to be in the discussion. A lot of people are saying edge rusher, but we're forgetting that Joseph Osai is waiting in the wings, and hopefully he's going to come back healthy and be a solid rotational guy, if not maybe take over a spot or something. So, I don't know that edge is going to be pressing. If there's it's high to pick one, but if there's an interior lineman or a guard tackle versatile type of guy, I know we talked about how nauseating it is that the Bengals have those guys enough of those guys as it is, but There's some talk. The center, I believe, out of Iowa was a Linderbaum. That's a guy that is out there that could be mid to late first round. He's supposed to be very good, and so I mean, maybe that's a name you kick around. I'd like to see offensive line. I'd like to see corner. That's probably where I would go. But we also know the Bengals don't like to go needs based. They like to go BPA, and they like to do that, and even with some premium picks that they hold. So.
And now you're actually good enough to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like if you do some things, obviously there's a lot of people that need to come back for free agency, but now it's like, maybe you can do that, especially if you do something to feel decent about the corner spot, because that is the glaring need right now, with Trey Waynes unavailable. Corner is a weird position to me. Like, I feel like draft analysts do like the worst job of projecting where, like, the order of how those guys are going to go. Not necessarily like who's going to be good, but I think teams are very nitpicky, very specific in like who they're looking for at those spots.
It's
so
impossible.
It's one of those things that
Really
Sauce might be the number one corner in college football. People might just not like him. You know what I mean? Like, you know what? We like the guy that's a little whatever. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's a really weird spot. And but for that reason too, you can make the playoffs and be picking in the 20s, and you can get a damn good one, you know, and you can get the dude, you know. I was shocked. I spent the whole Cleveland week talking about Denzel Ward versus Chase and how I wanted to see that. Newsom is really, really good.
He's a dude.
Like, I liked him in college, but I didn't like. I literally like wrote some positive things about him, and then I never followed up on it because I was like, then I got to draft him because I thought I was sure they weren't going to be in position to draft him. But like, I was like, ooh, I should watch more film on this guy because I bet you could see it. Like he's really good, and like, you know,
their secondary
high.
is scary. You know how the scariness that I talked about with Lamar or whatever. Their secondary with, you know, Delpit and Johnson, like actually now they're starting to rotate him into a role that he actually likes. Yeah, their future is super bright in their secondary. I will get the Browns that 100%.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, it comes down to identifying the guy that's going to be right for you and the guy that's going to be good fit, and you know, getting a little bit of luck in there. But like, you could be picking anywhere you want in the first. Like, you don't have to take. Who knows if he's that pick anymore? But Stingley was a top 5 pick last year. You know what I mean? Like, that's how they talked about. Like, you don't have to take a corner that high. Like, you can find the right guy. I feel like the NFL is pretty good at finding the right guy for the right team. And I think draft analysts are terrible about filling those holes. Like, you know, like, I think the guys end up being good, but they don't understand where guys are going to fall because teams are very specific. So I think you are looking for a guy who's got some length, you know, right, and who could tackle, is going to be a good fit for that stuff. I think maybe you're not seeing as much one high stuff because of the corner situation. You know, so maybe that Bates is being hurt by Trey being hurt, you know, more than anything. So I don't know. I could see that being the case, you know, like, but I don't think you've got to have an answer there that's not the draft, because you're not picking number 1 anymore. You know what I mean? So yeah, you gotta have some answers before that.
We gotta speed through some of these though, because I gotta step on myself. You guys can.
I was gonna say I just got the indicator that I got a very hungry little man.
Before you go, Robert James says, Matt, you need to take your Bengals shirt off because you keep on saying y'all. You need to say we and get down. Is what Robert said. So when you go back to watch this, we're gonna see how many times you say y'all. I didn't even notice that.
Y'all, really? Man, I'm not even from the South.
Well, I guess you weren't saying we, like you weren't on the Bengals team.
I never say we. I just don't, like, as a fan, I don't say we.
I'm not a part of the team. Neither is Matt.
Yeah, that's my take on it.
Randall is
like, we as a team I coach, we as a team I play on.
Randall's getting the bag, you know. He's got a reason. And Francis, his name is Sauce. He's not getting any NIL money from being called a mod. His name is Sauce.
Sauce. I mean, come on. Like, who doesn't want a guy named Sauce? Like Annie's good. Like, he could have just been a 7th round guy named Sauce, and we could have had a fan favorite. But we actually, you know, the shirts and everything and all the stuff, the merch and everything is just rolling through my head. I'm just
how is Frank's Red Hot not called him?
I thought he did have some type of deal with some barbecue sauce.
Man, look, sauce.
We're gonna sauce Gardner. I'll put that.
Cincy Jungle
shit on anybody, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna sauce you up, like all of these different things. Cincy Jungle, we're gonna do a canned food drive where everybody's got to bring tomato sauce, all types of sauce. We're gonna donate it to all these different foundations. We're gonna do a lot of things with sauce. I'm just putting it out there. We gotta really, really think this stuff. I can't really find any other questions. I know I have to go, guys. I'm sorry.
All right, yeah,
we're good.
I'm peacing out. I'm on diaper duty, so thanks a lot, everybody, for joining. Yeah, you guys gonna keep rolling, or should we sign off here?
We'll close it up. Yeah. For Zim, for Ace, for John, for Matt. I'm Anthony. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We got calls and stuff, but we kind of had a little bit of a structured show. We also had other questions that we wanted to get to. We tried to get to a couple of those. We had a lot of live viewers, which is awesome across all the different platforms. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can get our podcasts, whether it's Coach Speak and Chalk Talk from that guy right there, this guy over here, Zim and Ace, Orange is the New Black, John and I guess Diagonal. He and I do the Orange and Black Insider, all part of the Cincy Jungle Podcast Network, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all the major platforms. Subscribe, leave a review, check it out, and we appreciate all the support. Go subscribe to each one of our YouTube channels as well. We have a lot of fun. We do our own shows. We do a lot of these collaborations, which are a hell of a lot of fun. Thank you guys for coming on, spending a lot of time. Thanks to all the live listeners. Let's hope the Bengals get a dub in the desert this weekend, huh? They need this one against the Raiders for sure to get to 6-4 and keep being right in that mix of the AFC playoff race. So thanks, everybody, guys. Have a good weekend. We've got a holiday coming up, so take it easy. And, hey, we'll see everybody soon. We'll be doing post-game shows, all kinds of different stuff. And, hey, by the way, go catch up on some of the cool interviews that Zim and Ace did. Go catch up on some of Matt's shows, Coach Speak and Chalk Talk. We've done a couple of different shows on the Orange and Black Insider as well. So if you haven't yet, go tailgate and pregame with the shows. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see everybody next time.
Hello, world. What separated your deep ball from everybody else?
My deep ball, it has a little secret sauce to it, man.
Never get too high, never get too low, but just keep moving.
The whole story is Carlos never beat me in any kind of sports in high school.